What is the saddest thing a casino dealer has seen at their table? 1. It's a tie for the saddest thing I've witnessed. First, a young man in his early 20s had just gained access to a trust fund his grandparents had set up for him. 6 hours into my shift, his mother was standing behind him, begging him through tears to leave before he lost everything. He called security to have her removed, claiming she was harassing him. Technically, he was correct, and security escorted his mother away. He lost his entire future and alienated his own mother in one night at the tables. The second was a woman in her 30s playing way above her means. She had no strategy and refused any advice I tried to give. She said, "You work for the house." She lost about $2,000 to $3,000, then went straight to the ATM. The ATMs at Foxwoods charge $4 per transaction with a maximum withdrawal of $400. She had $2,000 left. Within 10 minutes, she was crying, telling everyone she had gambled away the mortgage and that her husband was going to leave her. She left just before my shift ended. On my way home, traffic was unusually heavy for 5 a.m. I later found out why. She had walked onto Route 2 and stepped in front of a bus. I found out it was her the next day. 2. I've lived in Las Vegas for decades, and I've seen some things. The two worst? You decide which is worse. First, at the Bellagio on a busy Saturday night, a high roller, or whale, arrived. He was such a big spender that he pointed to a craps table in the middle of the main casino floor, and they shut the game down and roped it off for him alone. He bought in for $1 million, and a crowd gathered to watch. Within 10 minutes, he lost nearly every bet. He became visibly agitated, yelling and insulting the dealers. They brought him another $1 million in chips, and he lost half of it in just 5 minutes. He grabbed a handful of chips and threw them directly into the stickman's face, then spat on the dealer and the floor supervisor. He flung the remaining chips into the air. Despite the assault, the dealers maintained stoic professionalism, quietly picking up the scattered chips. They placed the chips back in front of him, and the game continued as if nothing had happened. It was a display of self-control I've rarely seen. All the money in the world can't buy decency. The second? It was Christmas at the MGM. I saw a pregnant woman sitting at a slot machine, drinking whiskey, smoking a cigarette, and breastfeeding an infant. The ash from her cigarette was falling onto the baby's face. 3. I worked in the slots department at a Reno casino while in college. One night, I came across a woman who had just hit a progressive jackpot on nickel video poker. Her win was about $215. She was crying, so I asked if she was okay. She said, "Now I won't get evicted, and I can get my guitar back from the pawn shop." After we paid her, she insisted on tipping us $20, very generous for a small win. I tried to refuse gently, but policy required me to accept. My supervisor was watching, so I couldn't decline. Even sadder, she kept playing and put nearly $100 back into the machine. I never found out if she managed to avoid eviction or get her guitar back. 4. Late one night, I sat down at a blackjack table where a young man was playing alone. He was losing badly and kept increasing his bets. I could see he was sweating and visibly nervous. I asked, "What's going on, man?" He said, "I'm on my honeymoon, and I'm losing everything. But I've got a system, it's just a matter of time." The pit boss overheard us and, with more compassion than I expected, said, "No, son. We have the system. Go back to your bride." 5. I worked at a casino briefly last year. It was a sadder place than I had imagined. One night, a woman came in and won $2,000 within the first 10 minutes. It was right before Christmas and just before a COVID lockdown. She lost that $2,000 in another 10 minutes. She stayed at that slot machine for 4 hours, eventually losing an additional $4,000. She went home empty-handed. 6. I dealt blackjack for several years, and one of the saddest stories was about a regular who played at the high-limit tables. She started by playing $100 per hand at the high roller tables for about a year. The following year, she was playing $25 per hand. Another year later, she was down to the $5 tables. Then, she stopped coming in altogether. When I asked about her, I learned she had gone through her entire estate over a few years. It was like watching sadness in slow motion. She could have done so much more with that money. I was dealing in Reno at the time. 7. I'm not a dealer, but I've lived in Las Vegas. One night, around 3 a.m., after partying with friends, I was walking back to my car. I passed an alley and noticed a pawn shop with a small drive-through style window, the light on, and a line of customers outside. I watched as a young woman, holding a baby and wearing shabby clothes, stood there. She was pawning the last of what she had left. It was a heartbreaking sight.